D checking in here. Look, I'm here to force the question: is it too early to call Clipse "Let God Sort 'Em Out" a classic? Now, hear me out. First things first. Do people believe in an instant classic? Now, I've heard many say they don't believe in instant classics. Things need time to, get revered to that magnitude. I totally disagree. I do believe in instant classics. I remember, as soon as Illmatic hit, that was a classic. As soon as Doggy Style hit, that was a classic. As soon as Get Rich or Die Trying hit, whether people wanted to admit it or not, that was a classic. And that ended up being a classic. An album also doesn't have to be a perfect album to, be a classic. It doesn't have to be every single song is a 10. There are no missteps, there are no holes. I used to believe that, and I'm not sitting here, preaching to you guys about that and, coming down on people who do believe that because I used to believe that. I used to believe if it was one song that was off on the album, it could prevent it from being a classic. I think the Blueprint taught me that that is not the truth. I mean, the Blueprint has its holes in it, but it's still a classic, right? I think if we're talking about an album being a classic already, and again, hear me out. I don't think that Let God Sort 'Em Out is a perfect album, but I think again, an album has to be a game changer to be considered a classic, and I think that just from the rollout and the campaign that Push and Malice have been going on alone, this album is a game changer. And I think that this album gets a ball rolling, gets a momentum rolling. I mean, we're seeing it already. The summer's heating up. The year is heating up since this album dropped. And I think that we're gonna see more of that. Now, granted, we did get that Mass Appeal announcement and those rollouts before Let God Sort 'Em Out came out, but I do believe that the Let God Sort 'Em Out campaign had already been rolling as well. So the momentum of this album has been going for a minute now. And for the people like myself who thought that the momentum was actually going to stop when the album dropped, we've been totally fooled. The momentum has just intensified. These guys have been on every single platform you can think of. I mean, they performed at the ESPYs. They're everywhere. I mean, I couldn't even go down the line of all of the interviews, all of the appearances, all of the performances, all the conversations that Clips have had. I haven't seen a campaign like this. I don't want to say in a long time, but I'm gonna be honest, man. I really haven't seen a campaign or a rollout like this ever. If we're talking about being everywhere, because this takes on like the traditional marketing rollout where artists were going from radio station to radio station and television station to television station. But see, with those local airwaves, you were only hearing that in your local market. So I'm not saying that they're working harder than anybody's ever worked before, but we're seeing it in ways that we didn't see before. Like I wouldn't hear Jay-Z campaigning for the Blueprint in Charlotte, North Carolina when I'm in Atlanta, right? I remember when Jay was on the radio here in Atlanta campaigning for the Blueprint. I mean, it rings in my head all the time. I listened to the whole interview when I was in my car driving my 94 Altima, man. And it was Jay was saying stuff like, man, everything on the album's hot. Even the air in between the songs is hot. And we haven't seen a campaign or a rollout like this in the digital era ever. Now correct me if I'm wrong. And so not only is the album quality, not only is the album getting support, what I'm saying, from its peers and from the fans, and congratulations on them doing 119,000 units the first week. I think that we're going to see that sustain as well because of the campaign rollout. What this campaign rollout, and we're going to have to wait and see. I think it's a game changer in the sense where more artists have a clearer viewpoint of what the possibilities are and how hard they can actually campaign for one record. Now, these are the question marks, and we're at the very beginning of this, but we're going to have to see if this campaign rollout not only affects the first week, because at this point, to me, it's not really about the first week. Is this going to keep this album alive for the rest of the year? And it quite possibly can, because there's so much content that you can't even get to until until later, and you're going to be back down with the amount of work and the amount of content that is around this album and surrounding this album. So I think that the backlog of content that they've done is really going to be able to keep this album fresh, and we'll see how they roll out singles. I think the level of interest in this album is going to allow them to continuously roll out singles throughout the rest of the year. Whereas usually, if we're talking about, album releases in the digital era, they go strong for the first couple of weeks and then they wane off. I think that this rollout's going to pay off in that way. And again, with this being a quality album and with this possibly being a blueprint for, other artists to be able to roll out albums in this way, artists that are in the machine or possibly not even in the machine and people doing their version of this rollout, I think that this album could possibly be considered a classic. I mean, I'm gonna go with a yes. I think that it can fall in the instant classic category. We got all of the elements here. It's groundbreaking in the sense of how the marketing has measured up in the digital era. We've seen nothing like it, right? We're seeing a reunion between Push and Malice and Pharrell, you know what I mean? That we hadn't seen in what 15, 16 years. So it's gonna be held high for that. It's quality. The features all make sense. They're dope. You know what I'm saying? The bars are there, the production's there, and just the overall fervor and the intent is there. And it is so much around this album, whether it's, the Travis Scott thing, whether it's the Kendrick Lamar thing. So I think that this album is going to be held as a classic. Now, again, I know I'm probably going to get a bunch of people disagree with me on that, but I do believe in instant classics, and I do think that whether you feel that this album is perfect or not, I do think "Let God Sort 'Em Out" is going to fall in that classic category, especially for a year like this. Now, we're going to have to see if, again, the marketing campaign continues to work. I think it worked for the first week. I think 119,000 units is great for a Clipse album, especially after 15 years. And I think that just what we're seeing so far looks like it's working, but we're going to have to see what it does long term. And we're also going to have to see if people follow suit and continue to do, what Clips has done and see how much of a trailblazing mechanism this is in the industry. But let me know what you guys think. You think Let God Sort 'Em Out as a classic now or will be held as a classic? Hit like and subscribe. I would love to hear your feedback. Welcome to the crew for the people who are just now joining us. All right. Talk to you soon.